The most thrilling, spine-tingling series ever.
From the pages of R.L. Stine's best-selling books,
And the screams go on forever and ever.
We now return to Goosebumps.
Greetings, Goosebumps fans, young and old, big and small, living dead and undead. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas. I'm joined by my good buddy, Nick Shaw. We are the Goosebumps Crew, and we're back, as always, to talk some Goosebumps. If this is your first time joining us here on the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, I want to sincerely welcome you all, as always. If you are, or have ever been, a fan of the popular Goosebumps series of books, or the monster franchise those books spawned, I have a feeling this podcast is going to be right up your alley. Because as I always say, me, Bjorn, and Nick are some of the biggest Goosebumps nerds on the entire planet. We could talk about Goosebumps for hours on end, and that's exactly what we do here on this podcast. Every week, got a brand new episode talking about everything Goosebumps, whether it be the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, whatever it is. We're going to talk all those Goosebumps, no matter what it is, no matter what the era, the media form, whatever it is. We're going to talk those Goosebumps. So with all that said, if you end up liking today's episode, make sure you leave a like and comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell notification. New episodes go up every Wednesday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, so you'll get that little notification. If you're just dying to get those episodes early, however, don't you worry, they go up a day early over on our audio platforms, the audio-only versions. We're available on any place you get your podcasts, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, wherever it is. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts. And you can follow the Goosebumps Crew on social media. We're available on platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. And now you can follow us over on Blue Sky, Threads, and Tumblr. So we got 3 new social media spots you can follow us over. You can also follow Bjorn and Nick at Goosebumps Sausage Fan and Sean, respectively, and their social medias and their YouTubes. All those links are in the description below, so check them out. Join the Goosebumps Crew today, become a crew member, and we thank you in advance for your support. And we are welcoming back our very good friend, Austin, aka Goosebumps Completionist, to the show this week. Austin, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to be back and talking Goosebumps with the crew.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. And today we are delving into something very, very interesting. I guess you can call us Robert Stack, because we're talking about some unsolved Goosebumps mysteries. So we always talk about, many different aspects of the Goosebumps franchise. And for those of you who have been following us here on the podcast, we have done episodes in the past talking about sort of lost Goosebumps media, mostly lost Goosebumps books. We did an entire episode talking about the Goosebumps books that have been lost to time, whether they be canceled, they were planned to come out and didn't. Most of it was a result of, this whole fallout that R.L. Stine had with Scholastic and this legal battle between Scholastic and Parachute Press. The whole thing, we have a whole episode talking about that. But there are many other things in the Goosebumps franchise that have gone way under the radar, and many people who are not diehard fans probably have no idea about it. I guess you can say that we're delving into the Goosebumps iceberg a little bit, really, really deep in the Goosebumps iceberg for this week's topic, because we're going to talk about some of these unsolved Goosebumps mysteries surrounding many endeavors in the franchise. And, we invited Austin on because he is a Goosebumps scholar in my mind, and he's got a lot of knowledge on these different topics we're going to bring up today. We got a few, and actually, let's start with those lost books. So we won't spend too much time on this topic because, again, we've already talked about it in a previous episode, but there were books that were unreleased as a result of this legal fallout with R.L. Stine. As we mentioned before, There were books in these series that were going on, Series 2000, Give Yourself Goosebumps, a few other series, as well as an entire Goosebumps series, Goosebumps Gold, which got canned before it ever saw the light of day. I guess to start out, we mentioned before on the podcast that Goosebumps Series 2000 had an unreleased book, number 26, The Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader. Usually when people think about unreleased Goosebumps books, that's the one they immediately go to. It's the most well-known unreleased book of them all. But as has been found out, there actually was supposed to be 40 total books in Series 2000. ISBNs were found for 40 Series 2000 books. Many of them did not have names. The only other one that we knew had a name was 27, When the Snake Bites, and that was according to The Art of Goosebumps. Austin, what do you make of all these, books that were supposed to be released for Series 2000, but didn't?
Well, what I've been able to gather over some time looking into this was that the 40-book length of the series was the, I guess, hopeful wish of the publisher in hopes that Stein would renew his contract after X amount of books that he already agreed to. Now, I don't proclaim to know exactly how many books he signed on to do, per batch, let's say. But if I had to be a guessing man here, I'm assuming that he had a 25-book contract for Series 2000 alone, and he had to renew it to finish out the series. And if it was still selling well, which it really wasn't at the time, it possibly could have gone on further past 40. And I'm assuming that's what happened with the original 62 to begin with, because they were playing it by ear and scattershot early on, and then once the books really took off, that's when Stein got into the contract that he did. Now, there is some consternation whether he got into a 60-book contract immediately after the first two dropped, which might be true, but you still have to renew the contract to make sure that you can keep your publishing house, which for Goosebumps was Parachute Press, in a mutual partnership with the parent company that is taking on all the legwork, which was Scholastic. So, from my knowledge, that was the wishful thinking number from Scholastic. However, because of the fallout that happened with R.L. Stein and Scholastic, his contract expired after book 25, and all the things that he possibly had in the works post that book just never released because the writing was on the wall and he was already done with the publisher. He wanted to move on to HarperCollins, and that's how Goosebumps Gold came about. Because he knew that Series 2000 wasn't going to continue, he was going to take Goosebumps over to HarperCollins and make a limited series there with them and see how they sell. And it never happened because Scholastic ended up taking him to court and won the lawsuit. So that's what really killed Goosebumps in the year 2000 was Stein trying to pack up his bags, move over with Parachute to HarperCollins, and Scholastic said, no, you're not allowed to do that because you're in breach of contract. And the court sided with Scholastic. So,
yep. And trust me, there's a whole bunch of lore to this entire endeavor. It truly was, as we said in our initial episode, the dark age of Goosebumps, because it wasn't a gradual decline. And it kind of was in terms of sales, but it just stopped. Like it just hit a brick wall, and it wasn't until Horrorland when it really started picking up again. But in terms of Series 2000, there is a rumor going around that there was a series of standalone novels that R.L. Stein was writing in the mid-2000s. So after he left Scholastic and went over to HarperCollins, he started doing other things like The Nightmare Room, which was his next series, which was pretty much Goosebumps with a different coat of paint. It was just Goosebumps not named Goosebumps. And then he also did a few anthology books, The Haunting Hour and its sequel, The Nightmare Hour. And he did a few standalone novels, and there's a rumor going around that many of these standalone novels that came out during this time were initially plot ideas for Goosebumps books, assumably Series 2000 books. One way to back this up is, as we said, Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader was originally supposed to be the 26th Series 2000 book. That didn't get made, but afterwards, R.L. Stine would go on to write a book called The Adventures of Shrink Man. And from what has been said, it was pretty similar to what Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader was going to be. It even used an alternate version of the cover that was made for Goosebumps. And because of that, you could infer that a lot of other R.L. Stine standalone novels, for example, Creatures from Beyond, Zombie Town, My Alien Parents, Three Faces of Me, The 13th Warning, and even recent ones like It's the First Day of School Forever, were possibly ideas for Series 2000 books. Now, going off that alone, there's not enough to make up the full 40 book count, but it's an interesting theory because you could also infer through Goosebumps Gold that series never came to be, but they had ideas for a Haunted Mask sequel, a Dead House sequel, which was also a Christmas book, and a book called Slappy New Year. Two of those ended up happening, the Haunted Mask sequel in Horrorland, as well as Slappy New Year, also in Horrorland. So, knowing R.L. Stine, when he gets an idea, it's hard for him to shake the idea off. I am 100% certain that a lot of these ideas were for Goosebumps books, and he saved them for these different opportunities. He may deny it. If you ask him, he's probably going to be like, no, that's totally unrelated. I don't think it is. I think it's very much related to what he did back then.
Absolutely. Well, going on the novellas, there were 6 in total, and you brought all the titles up. Shrink Man is linked to book 26 of Series 2000. 2 other books we have found out in, sort of recent times now. It's been a few years since we discovered this. But there was 2 of them, My Alien Parents and Three Faces of Me, that were confirmed to be actually pre-Goosebumps stories that R.L. Stine republished. So he decided to backdoor re-release them under his Parachute brand, because Parachute were the people that took on the responsibility of production and release of these 6 novellas. The original title for My Alien Parents was You're Not My Parents, and it was from a Bantam Skylark UK exclusive book overseas. And I guess Stine still had the rights to it, to release it in America or whatever. So he re-released it with a new title and Tim Jacobus art. And then he did the same thing with Three Faces of Me, which was a book that he wrote, I think, as Jovial Bob Stine. It was called The Amazing Adventures of Me, Myself, and I. And that book was turned into Three Faces of Me retroactively, as well with Tim Jacobus art. So we know 3 of the 6 have been essentially solved, but the other 3, we don't know the origins. But I think I've mentioned this in the past, I think on the podcast here, that 2 of them, I'm hard confident, were at some point a part of another canceled Goosebumps book, which was Triple Header Book 3, which was a series that was very short-lived. And there's actually been some factual information that came out recently that's pretty fascinating. It was actually made under the snub of Scholastic. It was Parachute's way of getting additional material out. And Scholastic went along with it at first, but then they were like, you know what? We're going to put a stop to it. So they put an end to Book 3, and supposedly it had to do with declining sales, which could be an attributing factor, but I think it was probably a mix of both. Zombie Town and I think The 13th Warning, they are very short story in nature. They feel like stories that you would see in the Triple Header series. I'm at a hard confident that those 2 are most likely attributed to that lost book in some facet. However, when it comes to Creatures of Beyond, I have no idea. It could be pre-Goosebumps. It could be something that R.L. Stine had laying around. Possibly that could have been a standalone book, or maybe a draft for a Goosebumps book. I couldn't tell you, but if I had to be, gambling man, I'm going to say that he had wrote that book way before it was ever released.
I
So,
would imagine so. And
but
even more confusingly, the snake on the front of Creatures from Beyond Beyond not only was reused on a Goosebumps book, the live on stage adaptation, which we're going to be talking about that in a little while, but also considering that book 27 was called When the Snake Bites, this is a bit of a stretch probably, but the fact that Creatures from Beyond Beyond has a snake on the cover, you know, maybe
that is a theory out there. And so is that Welcome to Camp Slither book from Horrorland. They either that or Creatures from Beyond Beyond could be book 27. I would love for Creatures from Beyond Beyond to be book 27. If Stein would never admit it. I don't know if being prevented, but all he has said about it, and I guess we have to go off of this as fact. Unfortunately, he said he came up with the title and never wrote anything else for it.
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
At the end of the day, as we said, Incredible Shrinking Fifth Grader is the unreleased book that has the most information behind it. We have a finished cover art. We have a title. We have somewhat of an idea of a plot. And it's the only one of these novellas that I am relatively certain was taken from that original concept. Like that one, there's no, it's not like there's no correlation. It's very much there. It's basically what the book was supposed to be. So it's the unreleased book that technically did get released. It just wasn't a Goosebumps story. And that's why the whole thing about these novellas being an extension of that does hold some water to it, but unless Stein himself confirms it, we'll never know for sure. It's all speculation. But that's what we're here for.
Makes me wonder sometimes if his mind is jumbled a little bit, because sometimes like he can be contradicting in some of the things he says, but at the same time, it's like maybe it's just age. It's hard to say. Like it's like the slime doesn't pay thing. It's like he forgot completely about that contest and that kid who named the book, but then had the book come out like 20 plus years later. He was like, "Oh no, I don't remember nobody. That's my title." It's like
Jim Smiley was that kid. We did an episode with him. Check out that episode, by the way, if you have not watched that. That was a great episode right there. Another book I want to bring up. I'm glad you brought up Triple Header 3 because there's another book. It was the last Presents book. So for those unaware, there was a series of Goosebumps books based on TV episodes, which were in turn based on the books. It was a weird sort of full circle sort of thing. But there was a unreleased book in that series based on Blob the Ate Everyone. And it's a rare case because it's the only one of these unreleased books that was teased at the back of a book. In this case, the 18th Presents book, but it never got released. And Bjorn wasn't able to join us tonight, but he has said that he is almost certain that there does exist copies, probably very few, but he says that copies of that book do exist somewhere, and he says he might have a picture of it. We've yet to find it. If we do, that's going to be a big deal right there. Because that is the only book that did get teased and then just never saw the light of day. At least these other books did not have like a teaser on the back of a book. They weren't like said they're coming next and then they just never came out. That was the only one of these mysterious books. And that's about all we know besides that it was just supposed to come out. And when it came to Goosebumps Gold, we mentioned the 3 books in that series that were supposed to be Haunted Mask Lives, Happy Holidays from Dead House, and Slappy New Year. But it was also discovered that there were a total of 12 ISBNs that were found for Goosebumps Gold. So again, probably a publisher's goal, or maybe that was Stein's goal from the beginning, was that there's supposed to be 12 Goosebumps Gold books, and only 3 of them got plot ideas and titles. And again, that's one that we have no idea about anything that could have been from that. Maybe it could have been more sequels, like what we were expecting from the first 3 books. but unfortunately, we'll never know. And it doesn't seem like anybody is really willing to spill the beans on Goosebumps Gold more than anything.
Tim would if he could.
Yeah, I think Stein would have went through with Gold if he had the chance to, because he was in court with Scholastic for the ability to take Goosebumps under Parachute's ownership and be able to move publishers. But because Scholastic had vested so much amount of money into Goosebumps, and because they've been a partner with Parachute since the beginning, they won the lawsuit. And if Stein got his way, he would have taken it to HarperCollins, and who knows how many books could have come out of Goosebumps from that publisher. It could have been a completely different story. We possibly could have never gotten Goosebumps Horrorland or the monsters that we know nowadays if it was different. So
I don't think we would, because even though Goosebumps was declining at the time, if the book series could have continued, because there's plenty of series out there that still continue, even though they don't have millions of copies sold, they still release. So I fully believe that Stein probably would still have continued the line beyond what would be considered the death of Goosebumps at the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Harry Potter was just too big, though. I mean, that really took over, regardless whether or not I think Goosebumps declined or not. I mean, that just blew up, like Goosebumps did in the early 90s. So I think it would have continued, honestly. Stein loves, I think, the Goosebumps line too much just to let it go, which is why he wanted to take it with him.
Even if this whole legal debacle didn't even happen and we got 40 Series 2000s at the rate that they were releasing, we could have gotten Series 2000 at least until, God, maybe even close to 2003, at the rate that they were coming out. Because, yeah, ended on book 25, so there would have been 15 more, and it was at the beginning of 2000, so it would have at least been well into 2002. So it's sort of that what if scenario, what if that whole thing never happened. But
in an alternate universe,
yeah,
you believe in those alternate realities
out there where this is an entirely different story.
The unfortunate thing is, like you said, we could have had 40 Series 2000 books, which would have been 15 more instead of 12 potential Goosebumps Gold books. But we lost out on both because infighting and Stein wanting to up and move from Scholastic because he felt that they were being greedy. And that's up to debate. If you read the lawsuit, you can see exactly what it was about, at least on Parachute's side, pretty heavily. So you could pick a side there, but I think a lot of that got in the way from fans getting finality with Series 2000 and possibly even getting Goosebumps Gold. Who knows? Goosebumps Gold could have been under Scholastic if they kept their partnership at some point.
Never know. But, one last thing before we move on. It's incredible that, with how big of a shit show that whole legal thing was back in 2000, that they would be doing books nowadays at all, because it wasn't even that incredibly long that Horrorland started, because basically after the whole thing ended and Goosebumps was no longer making books, Scholastic absorbed the rights to Goosebumps from Parachute Press, so now they own essentially everything, if I'm not mistaken, all the trademarks, all the merchandising. And then they were just kind of like, let's try something. And then they started reprinting books. And then they started selling the show to a Cartoon Network for syndication. And then they're like, oh, people really like this. Okay, then we'll bring it back. That's the thing. It's one of the reasons it died was declining sales. And then just a few years later, they're like, oh, people actually do want this. Oops. So
I think we've talked about it in the past. Nick brought up, you have Harry Potter coming out. I think also, not a lot of people bring this up, but anime was becoming huge with kids in the late 90s. Pokemon was next level. I mean, trading card games video game culture in general, it was taking kids farther away from watching TV and wanting to play video games. And you have rival networks competing with kids television. And you can look at Goosebumps even. I think its own show was competing with the books, and in some ways, because they were coming out simultaneously with the books and, taking away potential customers who just watch the episode for free and get the story that way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was a weird time, but there was a lot of stuff going on that brought declining sales. But I think the number one thing people hardly ever bring up is it was a lot of fatigue going on. A lot of fatigue. Kids horror was booming. There were so many competitors out there flooding the market. And there was quite literally a collapse in 1998 where literally all the knockoffs were dying off one by one in the same year. And then Goosebumps went down to 2 book series. It had Give Yourself and Series 2000 for the remainder of however long it lasted until 2000. So, I mean, kids horror was limping along. And even Are You Afraid of the Dark tried to come back, and they only lasted 2 seasons in the, around 99, 2000. So I just think people needed a break from kids horror for a little while to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. I would certainly agree, especially in terms of Goosebumps, because of how many, not only with the books and the show, but just how much merchandise and like how they were starting to branch out to other avenues, Disney and live shows and all these different things, possible talks of a movie. Like, it was just, I could imagine maybe some people just kind of being like, yeah, I'm getting kind of bored with this. And, obviously now we're just kind of like,
I don't know, the superhero movie trend you thought would die, and it's still kicking along, even though it's not as popular as when it, hit its peak. It's still trucking along though.
Yeah. Some things are better able to last than others, I guess. But when it came to Goosebumps, yeah, I can imagine, and yeah, then with Harry Potter, you have this brand new thing that's not an anthology horror. It's a story driven series about, fantasy. It's not horror, it's fantasy dealing with magic and wizards and whatnot. So I can imagine that.
I don't know. There's some horror and elements in Harry Potter.
You know what I'm talking about. Like it was the different tone from Goosebumps. So it was probably, that's why it also caught on, because people are like, okay, here's something new that we're gonna like.
It's only because Harry's parents were dead. I mean, you can't have a Goosebumps story without the parents. So,
well, I guess, but I can definitely see that though, and it's a shame. I think by now we made our point that, like, what could have been, but one thing I want to move on to now, we mentioned earlier Goosebumps Live on Stage. So we've talked about this in the past, I feel, but in 1998, Feld Entertainment, you may know them as the company behind Disney on Ice, they created their own Goosebumps live show, simply called Goosebumps Live on Stage. It was a limited release, and it wasn't a particular adaptation of any Goosebumps story, but it was a brand new story in the Goosebumps universe, and it brought all these different creatures to the theater stage, and it was a typical sort of theater experience, but this whole endeavor, minus some surface promotional material and some merchandise that has surfaced, we can thank Bjorn for a lot of that. Other than that, we don't know anything else about this show. This show has gone completely under the radar, and besides the book adaptation, no footage from the actual show has released. But as I would like Austin to explain to us, there was supposedly a recording of some kind at some point in history.
Yeah, so I have been after this play recording basically since I got into hardcore Goosebumps collecting around 2020. And, I would say maybe back in 2022, I was thumbing through newspaper.com archives, looking up information possibly out there about the play. And I found that in its inaugural show, which I think took place in Florida at the Sanger Theater, they had a bunch of camera people there to record the entire play. And the article brought that up. And to go even further, they were talking about using some of the footage for promotional materials, and there was possibly going to be maybe 1 to 2 shows, I believe, going to be playing that night so they can get some extra footage to replace maybe some unusable stuff that they might come across. So that right there proved to me that there was, in fact, a play recording of the inaugural show done. So being me, I was like, I might try to reach out to Sanger Theater. I reached out, got no response. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I can reach out to Rupert Holmes' publicist and Feld Entertainment's social and see what happens. And I politely got told to, kick rocks because, it was basically out of their hands to allow us to gain access to the footage. And all we said was, I think it was me and Jude reaching out. If you don't know who I'm referring to, listeners out there, you've probably heard Jude DeLuca in past episodes on here. Very knowledgeable guy as well. We were both told that even for archival purposes, we're not allowed. So, unfortunately, this, I think, is going to be an unsolved mystery for a long time until maybe some superhero with a cape that possibly hears this podcast that might have worked on the play or might have had some involvement behind the camera recording the play might be the Robin Hood that we all need and can upload it to the internet for us to watch. I won't DOS you. I won't expose you. You can put a private link.
Yeah, man, we'll keep you anonymous.
You can leave it anonymous.
Deadpool linked that, man. Ryan Reynolds that shit.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds.
That's definitely the thing, is that, like, the internet is such a vast, like, wonderland of all these different things. And I do got to say, for just a second to get off track, you, Austin, and Jude are a fucking superhero team in terms of finding this Goosebumps lost media. A lot of things that were previously lost have been found with their help. If you at home remember our episode with Braden Gardner, the winner of the Brain Juice Terrifying Title Contest, none of that footage would have been found, number one, if not for Braden and his family, but also for Austin and Jude posting that footage online for all the world to see. And now that is widely, accessible footage now. Same thing with I believe, mid-2010s interview with Brian Stelter and R.L. Stine. It was like a live Q&A, and that was also lost for a while, and then you guys found it and put it online, and now everyone can see it. So these guys are superheroes. Like, usually if there's anything lost, they're going to be the ones to find it. And Jude especially has been finding a lot of these, like, contest winners and stuff like that. Like, you guys, man, I envy your guys' dedication to unsurfacing these mysteries. But going back to Live on Stage, so the recording is not available, but there are available images supposedly from a recording. And if you can see, so here are some of the images from the show. You can see some of the actors, some of the props, and you can actually see that there is a VH1 logo or a screen bug at the bottom there. Now, Austin, you said that there was some sort of VH1 like documentary or special that was covering the show.
Yeah, so there was a show, I think in 1999 to around 2002 on VH1 called Where Are They Now? And the show is lost media itself. So if you want to even find this episode where
is it now?
You're going to have to find it too. So more lost media out there. But anyways, they did an episode where they wanted to cover Rupert Holmes because of his song, If You Like Pina Coladas. He's the guy that created that. Well, in his interview, I guess, and going over his history about the song and his life career, Feld Entertainment got brought up in Disney on Ice. There was footage from that supposedly. And then there was, I guess, in a portion of the episode, some clips played from a potential recording of the live on stage play where those images were derived from. And somebody who's, I guess, a massive Rupert Holmes fan posted this on his fan website years ago. And just recently, we were able to find it on this guy's website and bring it to life for everyone. But the possibility that they had footage to use to put into that documentary kind of proves that at least maybe there was a teaser tape made for traders to kind of pass around to stages across the country, or maybe even the UK and over in Europe, for them to look at the play and say, hey, this is something I want to put on. Possibly that's where it could originate from, or possibly it could be the master tape of maybe the original recording that we found in the article, or maybe some other subsequent recording we just don't know about. But if those clips do exist in that episode, we first need to confirm that the episode can be found, and we can confirm that those are clips. Yeah. So it's a whole thing. But it provides some legitimacy and some actual hope that there is an actual recording of the play out there. We just have to find it to surface somehow.
And those images are proof that it does exist. Like it exists somewhere out there, and we will find it. But as of right now, again, the only things that we have are obviously the book adaptation, Screams in the Night, which is basically an adaptation of the entire screenplay. We have merchandise that was available for purchase at the event, and we have 2 commercials, one of which was locally aired, and one of which was on the Ultimate Goosebumps VHS tapes. But that is literally all we have at the moment, so we're hoping at some point that we can find that. Actually, just this moment, I had no idea going into this that I could find this, but I actually just found an article on Playbill.com from December 30th, 1998, talking about Goosebumps Live on Stage. So I'm going to read it here. It's not a super long article. It's pretty short, actually. It says, Goosebumps tour suddenly canceled for financial review. Goosebumps Live on Stage, the theatrical version of the popular R.L. Stine children's horror novel series written and directed by Rupert Holmes, has canceled its entire road schedule a mere 3 months into its North American tour. A spokesperson for the company said the show played its last performance on December 6th in Columbus. The Goosebumps tour began September 1998 in Pensacola, Florida. Canceled were future dates in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Boston. Goosebumps Live on Stage, the theatrical version of the popular R.L. Stine children's horror novel series written and directed by Rupert Holmes. That's they basically can't copy the entire first line. It says, we wanted to review the show to improve its financial success, says Catherine Orton-Mabry, director of corporate communications for Feld Entertainment, which is producing the tour. Orton-Mabry declined to say whether the tour had been losing money, but sources say Goosebumps lost a lot of money in development and had experienced weak ticket sales. Asked if the tour would resume at a later date, she said, we're looking at a lot of options. Goosebumps aim to produce scares and laughs through elaborate special effects, including a gigantic snake, a fiendish funhouse, and Goosebumps' favorite, Slappy the Demon Dummy. That's fun. The plot of the show was simple. 4 kids find themselves in the mysterious Doomsday bookstore, where the proprietor introduces them to 3 separate scary stories, all of which they become personally involved in. Holmes, a Tony Award winner for The Mystery of Edwin Droon and the singer-songwriter of Escape, the Pina Colada song, wrote the script R.L. Stine, then novelized it into a special edition Goosebumps Live on Stage, available only at the show and given away for free in most cities. It starred Paul Benedict as Mr. Gander, Jamie Bennett as Josh Barton, Anne Marie Nest as Jesse Barton, Jason Griffith as Skate Palmer. I'm wondering if that's the same guy who did the voice of Sonic. Michael Sean McGinnis as Dad Barton. Tiff Lukenbill as Barca, Knight, Hank, and Slappy. Stephanie Thompson as Princess / Monster Blood Slappy. And Brittany Kiefer and Jamie Lynn Keller, who share the role of Jamie Barton. And that was it. So it seems that the show itself was having issues of its own. It was during that same troublesome period of Goosebumps, but from the sounds of it, it wasn't doing so well just on its own.
Yeah, it does sound like they were having some financial problems. I think it was because the entire cast from the production was a traveling production. So they went to every city with the play. It's not like the Goosebumps Phantom of the Auditorium play they have nowadays, where they will like lease the music out to local theater companies and then they'll have local actors play the roles. Now, this was like an actual production that Velvet Entertainment took all the expenses of and took all the financial responsibilities of. I'm assuming that the weak ticket sales possibly had to do with maybe poor marketing. I couldn't tell you, but from memory, the only time I saw that this play had advertising was on Fox, and that was about it. Yep. Maybe Fox Family, if you were lucky, if that was even a thing in '98, I couldn't tell you. But anyways, yeah, it probably had poor marketing. And then on top of that, you had Goosebumps kind of declining already. Like the book sales were dropping. The TV show was getting canceled due to low viewership and, you know, some issues going on with the show. I've always attributed that Goosebumps at this point was suffering from the overall kids' horror die-off of '98. And it's ironic that the play died in '98, but I feel like that's possibly what it was. It had something to do with fatigue and possible showing that kids weren't as interested in Goosebumps in this year of time as they were possibly 2 years beforehand.
Mm-hmm. I agree. For the sake of time, I will leave links to some of these articles that I have found just now covering the show, and you guys at home can take a look at them. But for the sake of time, we won't go over them right now. But I do feel at a later date we'll have to go more in depth on this show, and hopefully at some point too, like maybe we can talk to people who are involved. You know, if we ever get a chance to talk to someone like Rupert Holmes about the making of the show, I would love to bring him on the podcast to learn more about this. You know, this is the show we've talked about many Goosebumps live shows. We talked about Fan of the Auditorium. We talked about Goosebumps Alive, which was the little known London show. And, you know, there's also the Disneyland attraction, the Goosebumps Horrorland Fright Show, which does have footage available. Funny enough, like of the two ones in the 90s, that one actually has quite a bit of footage available of the show and what you could have seen from it. This one has practically nothing. So hopefully one day we can find it. But because, I mean, it's so weird for such a big endeavor to go completely, you know, absent, mysteriously gone like that. So, but what are you going to do? All right, next up on our little Unsolved
the VH1.
Yeah, VH1. Yeah, where are they now? But next up, I want to bring up, so there were many different Goosebumps contests back in the day, many of which we've covered here on this podcast. The Brain Juice Terrifying Title Contest in 1998, another Goosebumps title contest from 1994 through AOL, both of which involved titles for Goosebumps books, one of which took 30 or so years to get made, and one of which was made into a short story on the spot, and that was it. But there was another sweepstakes, and this one was a partnership through Lunchables. And this seems to be one of the only contest winners that has yet to be discovered. Austin, can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 1998, Lunchables in Goosebumps 2000, as it was being advertised as, ran a heavy promotion throughout magazines. They had commercials for this thing. They were promoting it on pretty much all the Lunchables products of the day, even though if you're trying to find ephemera of those boxes, it is insanely rare to even find an image of that. But anyways, they were holding this contest where essentially there was going to be a handful of grand prize winners that if they won, they'd be taken to New York to visit R.L. Stine and help him write a Series 2000 book. Now, if you've seen the Kid Leaf Stoops video doc about lost media and Goosebumps, he did bring up this specific contest because there's speculation that a certain Series 2000 book possibly was co-wrote with 3 kids, involved. Well, if you read the fine print of the advertisement on this contest, not only did this contest produce 3 kids that would allow to help R.L. Stine write a book, there was also, I believe, around 2,500 winners that would receive an exclusive to the contest, never before seen short story written by R.L. Stine. We have no idea what that means. What book they were given at the time, we don't know, nor has any photo evidence of this contest book prize has ever surfaced whatsoever. And
well, the one thing I wanted to bring up, the only thing from this giveaway that we do know about is right down here, too, in the fine print. I don't know if you can see. It says that 3 proof of purchase and $6.50 gets you this Goosebumps Series 2000 secret bookcase. Now, that's not even a prize of the contest, but it's the only thing related to this contest that we know exists. Many people have that little bookcase.
That bookcase is actually surprisingly one of the holy grails of Series 2000 collectibles. I mean, you see that thing pop up on eBay, for example, it sells immediately because people want it so bad.
Yeah.
So, this contest kind of lives in infamy. Not only do we want to know what the short story book is or what it looks like or possibly see one turn up for sale, we want to know what Series 2000 book was written by these kids with R.L. Stine. And better yet, what exactly are we looking at in terms of time frame? Because, when this contest came out, I think it was June of 1998 when the contest was out, and then it was supposed to end. I think it might say it on the ad. I think it was probably late June or July, maybe August at the latest. But if you look at the turnaround time for books back then, I would assume that would put the actual book that these kids hypothetically helped create between books 13 to 22, around that range. It could be anywhere in between that because, you have proofreading, setting up what it's going to look like in terms of the cover for the press and, getting all the, ISBNs lined up with the release and all that. That takes some time for the publisher. So, and plus when Stine is writing a book a month, he can easily push one forward over another one if one is taking too long. Mm-hmm. So who knows? But if I had to guess, it would be between that time frame of the series.
It looks like it says May 19th.
I wonder if Jeepers, what the sneak preview book, the little mini book. Mm-hmm. I don't know the complete origin of that, but possibly maybe they gave those out. Those were the
I've
mini stories.
I've thought about that, and from the people that I have talked to that had the sneak preview, which has, I think, The House of No Return in it, people were getting those from, I think, Barnes and Noble. So you had to go to an event, and they were giving them away for free there. So I don't know if those were leftover. They very well possibly could just be leftovers of that they had laying around. But the fact that only 2,500 people in theory have this book and we've never seen a photo or anybody bring it up online is almost catastrophic to me because I've spent so many hours trying to find just any sort of information on an ISBN of it, or maybe somebody bringing it up in Reddit or a blog, or looking on archive.org and going on old websites. There's nothing about this book prize whatsoever on the internet, nor the contest winners and who their identities are, or perhaps anything related to them talking about the event in a magazine article or anything.
I wonder if they even got the prize at that point. You know what I mean? It could be just the fact that they ended the contest and there was potentially no winner to it. When did this end? What year was that? 98?
It
Yeah,
says it was
98.
May 1998, so it had to have been like early within Series 2000. But again, like you said, like considering how long it takes for a Goosebumps book to get made, it probably would have had to be like mid-series if they did have kids work on this. See, here's the thing about these Goosebumps contests, because we talk about these all the time because they're just, I don't know if it was just an issue with just managing them. I don't know if it was just like they didn't want them to be like a big deal, but many of these contests like are not only so shrouded in mystery. Again, many of these we wouldn't even know if it wasn't for your guys' sleuthing. And we're still trying to find out more and more and more about them. And yeah, this is just one of the many ones that for a while, and this one obviously is still unanswered. That's just like we have no idea. They didn't announce anything, like, and we don't know what came of it. The only Goosebumps contest that I know had actual like payoff for the prize was the Fox Kids Goosebumps giveaway from like 1996 or something like that. That was the one that Jack Archer won because he got to be in an episode. He got to be in a Goosebumps book, technically 3. I always bring this up because, like, you get to be in a Goosebumps book. No, that fucker got to be in 3 books because he was in a 2-parter for Series 2000, and then he got brought back again for the sequel and Give Yourself Goosebumps. So he was very lucky in that regard. But that's the only one that, like, for at least for I know, we really know anything about, like, that it actually paid off. I guess there was something about the Chief of Creeps 2001 for Fox Kids. That was the other Fox Kids Goosebumps contest that they did. And I think that was also found by Jude. I actually have a picture of it right here.
Yeah, I think I remember the contest winner's name. It was featured in a issue of Totally Fox Kids magazine.
Yeah. Sarah Mayer, age 13. Yeah. She was the winner of the Chief of Creeps 2000 sweepstakes. And she said she would be sent to the Goosebumps Creature Shop to be transformed into ghostly goblins and have a spine-tingling lunch featuring Goosebumps Series 2000 Lunchables with head Chief of Creeps R.L. Stine. So it wasn't the same contest, but funny enough, they ate Goosebumps Lunchables. So
that perhaps lends credence that, they were, I guess, co-promoting, because Fox Kids, if you look at like the Goosebumps commercials, compilations, I don't know if you have this commercial in one of your videos, Isaiah, but you'll see the graveyard one where they're holding up the bookcase and like, oh, you can buy with a proof of purchase, you get this bookcase, but they're holding like some silver book, implying that, if you win this contest, you get to have an exclusive story that nobody else has, and you get to go meet R.L. Stine and help him write a book. That would have been the coolest contest to win as a kid, other than the one Jack Archer won. Mm-hmm. So I think when people hear about the Lunchables contest, they're like, man, that sounds like a really cool one to win. But we know none of the winners. It's never, yep. That's what they held up in the commercial, yep.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the book. I've always thought, like, wait, is that the actual thing that they won? Because that would be really cool.
That would be cool. I'd love to have a book that looks like that.
This says Goosebumps 2000 on it, not Goosebumps Series 2000, which is really hard to find.
This is a brief tangent, but I don't know why. I really like this logo that they use for Goosebumps Series 2000. I like how like stringy they made the logo look. I don't know why. I always kind of liked it, but they only used it on merchandise, so it was never on the actual books. So I mean that was kind of weird. But I remember actually that was when I started doing the commercial compilations, because I've been able to find tons of Goosebumps commercials. That was one of the first ones I found, but actually the very first version I found had really shitty audio. And then later down the line is, more people started posting, VHS tapes from recordings. I was able to find a better audio one. But that's like the only, that and the print ad are the only remnants of that contest. And it just said that like you can help R.L. Stine write a Goosebumps Series 2000. they didn't even mention like the short story or the book safe in the commercial. It was just that you could fly to New York and help write a Series 2000 book. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a very interesting case.
Maybe they changed the contest. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you haven't seen a book. Maybe they changed that.
Maybe
Maybe
there was just 3 winners, and they did away with all the other stipulations. But obviously the book safe is still a thing because people obviously have them. So there was still a mail away option to get them. But I think what would actually help maybe put the matter to bed is perhaps if we can find intact Lunchable boxes from the time to get a more general sense of what the contest was actually promoting. And supposedly there is a rumor that the winners were kind of mentioned on the back of one. I don't know if that's true. I've never seen proof of it, but I have heard that out there. So until we find it, we can't really speak on it.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully one day, you guys have been able to find a lot of contest winners for Goosebumps, and hopefully one day when we find whoever it was, we can get some clarity on the whole situation. Because I'd like to know what.
Perhaps one of them are listening right now. If you're out there listening, please reach out to Isaiah.
Yes, God, please.
Social.
Literally, please.
Get you on an interview about it.
Austin, did I ever tell you that this is a very quick tangent? Did I ever tell you that when we did our episode on the back of the book advertisements and we got to the what gives you goosebumps like contest, that one of those kids actually commented on our video? Like out of nowhere, one of those kids just was like, "Hey, that's me right there," and I'm like, "Holy crap!" Like that.
Being immortalized in the Goosebumps book has to be the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it was like he's a grown man now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that someone from there was watching. They're probably thinking like, oh hey, there I am, right there. Crazy. But yeah, God, please, if you're the winner of this contest and you're watching right now, email us. We'd love to talk.
Help us solve this unsolved mystery.
Yeah, Robert Stack. Yeah. If you have any indication on the unsolved mysteries of the Goosebumps Lunchable. Oh, man. Anyway, moving on. Now we have something very, very interesting. You can say it's a piece of merchandise, but in the 90s, there were many different Goosebumps audiobooks. In the 90s, they were done by Walt Disney Records, so Disney had their hand on Goosebumps far before the Disney Plus series. But Walt Disney Records did this series of Goosebumps audiobooks based on books in the original series. But apparently, now for a while, I personally thought that the rarest of this bunch was Welcome to Dead House, which, from my understanding, was only sold at the Disneyland attraction. It's certainly a rare one. But as you have found out, Austin, there is apparently another very, very rare Goosebumps audiobook based on a short story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it has no known origin, but all we have to go off of is one singular image online that was provided by somebody who came forward originally that they had memories of owning an audio cassette of this story. And you can actually go on Archive and YouTube and listen to it. It's narrated by R.L. Stine. It's completely official, and it's absolutely real. It's a audiobook of Spirit of the Harvest Moon, which was a short story from the Second Tales to Give You Goosebumps short story collection. Now, if I had to guess where this came from, there was a very short-lived magazine from Scholastic in the mid-90s called Thrills and Chills. And if you got these sealed bags that came with the magazine, you'll get goodies inside. And they often came with like Vampire Fangs, little mini books. They came with Goosebumps books from time to time. I've seen people get Ghost Next Door, The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb inside of these goodie bags. But normally you only see maybe the first 8 issues sealed. And I can guarantee you that this hypothetical audiobook didn't come out in those. But I have never seen for sale any sealed goodie bag of this magazine post issue 8. So perhaps it was a prize given in Thrills and Chills magazine's subscription bags, which came with all these goodies in each and every issue. If I had to guess, it probably came out later on in the run. And the only reason why I think of this is because the person who came forward on Reddit mentioned that he remembered getting it inside of some bag of sort, like a goodie bag, with a book and some other things in it and a magazine, which fits the description of Thrills and Chills magazine. Now, what makes matters worse is, besides that one image that you could probably find on Goosebumps Wiki if you want to pull it up now, Isaiah, no known sold listing ever of this thing online. There's no known other image of it, which in my opinion signals that this possibly could be the rarest form of physical media ever produced for Goosebumps, period. If you have this in your collection, you're possibly sitting on a fortune. We just don't know how much it's worth.
Yeah, there. And I'll throw up a high quality image up on screen here.
That's the only image we know of that is possibly associated with it. So, yeah.
And going off of this was discovered by Goosebumps Art, a friend of ours in the Goosebumps community. He posted about this on Reddit, and this is where I believe the file was also found. He believes that this tape actually could have come from the Goosebumps fan club, according to another Reddit post. If it did, that would be the first time I'm hearing of that, because...
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no audio cassette that's ever been put in that I'm aware of. And we've covered the fan club packs pretty extensively.
Mm-hmm.
See, Isaiah, if you want to pull up a picture of Thrills and Chills magazine sealed, and see if you can find an image, you can see what the packs would have looked like. Here, let me go grab it. We can cut out me getting up here if you want, but I'll grab the bags. I have one here.
So, yeah, because I'm reading here on the Reddit post. This was from Reddit Tip of My Tongue, and the author said that he was browsing and he was reflecting on one of the first stories that ever scared him, and he said that it was a possibly a Stein story, and he knows he had a subscription to Goosebumps, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if it came in one of those monthly packages. So,
see, if you look at this is the magazine, and this is what the goodie bag would look like, and it would be full of stuff, like promotional stuff, like I said, toys and books and what have you. I think that this is probably a good candidate of where it would have come from and originate.
I would not be surprised. It could have come from either or. That's the interesting thing. And again, makes it such an interesting mystery. Is where did it come from? We have access to it. We have the file. And of course, I'll leave a link to the audio file down below for you guys at home to check out. But it is interesting. It's like, where could it come from? Because it's so... I'm honestly wouldn't be surprised if it did come from that magazine, which would probably explain the obscurity of the availability of the whole thing. I feel like if we were in the fan club pack... And maybe he was thinking... that Reddit user was thinking of that, because I would assume that magazine was a subscription-based thing, and if it came with Goosebumps items, I would imagine, and again, the obscurity of it.
Matt, like I said, nobody knows the real value of this, and we don't really have any record of somebody owning this physically in their collection. If you have this tape out there and you've had it all these years, please, share it on social of you holding it and give us how a story of how you got it if you remember it, because we're just looking for any bits of information to help piece together where it came from, because obviously it's real. We know that it exists in audio form, and it supposedly has a physical form. You're just missing the origins behind it and where it came from. And for something being this rare and possibly in the top 3 rarest Goosebumps items ever made, we as Goosebumps historians and nerds, we want to be able to log this information out there for collectors and maybe people out there that might stumble across this at a flea market and have no idea what they're looking at. You never know. There could be one out there.
Please, by all means.
True.
But fortunately, unlike live on stage, we do have the audio file, so we do have the recording, and we do have an image. So we know it exists. It's just a matter of finding it out there in the world. But fortunately, it is we do have access to it, and hopefully one day we can figure out where exactly it originated from, because I certainly want to know. I'll be the first to admit, before we recorded this episode tonight, I had no idea about this either. This was the first time I ever heard about this very thing. So another thing we got to hope our Goosebumps friends out there in the community and our audience can help us solve. Now, we got one more mystery we got to touch on. And unlike all the other ones we've covered so far, this one is relatively recent. It concerns the Goosebumps movies. And for those who were following Goosebumps movie news back in the late 2010s, there was supposed to be a sequel to the 2015 Goosebumps movie starring Jack Black that was announced, I believe, 2016. It was pretty soon after the first movie dropped. And it was teasing that Goosebumps 2 was going to be Goosebumps Horrorland. Now, there was speculation. Obviously, they announced the sequel right after the movie. God, I even think before the movie came out, they already announced the sequel. They were that confident it was going to be a success.
I'm pretty sure it was before.
Yeah, they were that confident it was going to be a success, and to be fair, it was. So, but they teased that there was going to be a second Goosebumps movie, and then in 2016, 2017, they released a teaser image that was Goosebumps Horrorland Fall 2018. So again, I'll throw up a high quality image, but this was the teaser image that was posted to social media. And I gotta be honest, when I saw that, I was hyped because I was like, Horrorland in a Goosebumps movie, freaking awesome. So, Austin, can you tell us a little bit about what we were expecting from this movie when it was first announced?
Well, from what I've gathered, you've already mentioned basically all the rudimentary knowledge out there about it. Essentially, they announced this sequel like right before the original 2015 movie came out. And then once 2015 became a success, it seemed like it was a green light to go ahead and make this Goosebumps Horrorland sequel. Now, digging into information online, I haven't been able to find really anything about the script or what have you, but it seemed like somewhere in the developing and concept stage, they decided to pull back from the Horrorland idea because they saw how big of a success Slappy was. So they wanted to incorporate Slappy into the mix somehow, and what ended up happening was there was some info, apparently some people like going back and forth with creative, and then somehow, some way, the Horrorland idea got scrapped completely, and they wanted to do a more like the 2015 approach to the sequel, to be playing it safe and bring back Slappy as the main villain again. And that whole script for Haunted Halloween, which ended up being Goosebumps 2, is a whole different rabbit hole of rewrites and Frankensteining together different scripts. Mm-hmm. But the Horrorland movie just got cast aside, and we really don't know the exact reason why it ever truthfully got canceled, other than what people have said about Slappy and wanting to include him, which makes sense. Why it would be canceled? Because Horrorland would be venturing obviously away from Slappy and making him the mascot and the face of the franchise, which, if that's the reason, I want to hear from the creators who initially pitched Horrorland saying that's the case, because I think it would be really fun for us to at least know what the movie would have been about and know more about the story involved with it than what we have been given currently about it. I agree. And I think that would be a fun little thing to learn and hear from at some point. If the creators will ever step forward and say, hey, like, I was the one that wrote a concept pitch for it, or, I wrote a test screenplay for it. If you want to, take a peek at it, here you go. But we just don't have any of that. We don't have anything else besides promotional advertisements and some teasers out there about it. And I think a poster was also made, and I don't know if that's an official one. I've never been able to really prove to myself that that's a real poster, but there is a Goosebumps 2 Horrorland poster out there.
I think if it's the one that I'm thinking of, I think it was fan made. But I do remember it was one that was going around the time. So this is
that one.
Yeah. So I do.
I want to say that's fake.
I do think that's one was fan made.
It's literally taking the Jurassic Park gate.
That is the Jurassic Park.
It's the Jurassic Park gate.
That's funny.
That is the Jurassic Park gate. Oh my god!
For a while,
That's
this was going around. This was going around, and people were thinking that this was going to be it. And honest to God, I mean, even though I kind of was like, "Yeah, that doesn't look real," at the time, I was really, really excited, and it was. I also wonder if maybe the reason that they move forward too is because originally they were saying that the entire original cast from 2015 was going to be returning. So you had obviously Jack Black was going to come back to do R.L. Stine. You had Odeya Rush, Dylan Minnette, Ryan Lee, all those returning actors. And honestly, if they were to keep it in the same plot line, it could have worked because 2015 has a theme park in the woods, and I don't remember. I think this might have just been an idea I came up with, but I feel like I heard this somewhere. The idea would be that the Horrorland book would open up and the entire park would come out of the book. I don't remember if that was an idea that I came up with. I certainly like that idea. I feel like that could have been cool. But yeah, aside from that, there's no other information other than the fact that they were essentially going to carry over the cast and crew from 2015 to do this one, and then somewhere along the lines, it just slowly dissipated. None of the kid actors came back, or kid actors. You no longer had Rob Letterman directing. Ari Sundell came in to direct Goosebumps 2, and even Jack Black got busy with House of the Clock on Its Walls, and he would only come to the second movie in terms of like just sort of a glorified cameo. But I wouldn't be surprised if Slappy was one of the reasons they moved away from it. At the time, I was more pissed off than anything because I'm like, why would you skimp on Horrorland for more Slappy? And even at the time, you were talking about how it went through so many different rewrites and changes and whatnot. And they went from Horrorland to Slappy Halloween. And I'm like, lame. Lame. It was, I don't know. It felt like such a big slap in the face because Horrorland has not really had a great on-screen adaptation yet. The best, obviously, is the 90s series. But even the 90s series, and we've talked about
this. To me, that's the only release because the movie didn't happen. The Disney Plus show only had a clickbait title. There was nothing Horrorland in that episode.
Well,
so as far as actual
Horrorland PC game, you can look at the Horrorland PS2 game, and I think that if you're looking for an expansive open world Horrorland experience, that's probably the best thing that Goosebumps will have to offer with that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get it in terms of it adapting the story.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like the 90s show. Like, look, the 90s show episode is fun. I thoroughly enjoy that two-parter. But the Horrorland Park is measly. And that's no fault of anyone. It's because of the budget they were allowed. I always said it looked like a crappy Christian Bible camp more than Horrorland. But the thing is, like, a movie. Think about it. A movie with all the different kind of effects. Because 2015, whether you like it or not, was ambitious in its monster effects, and I'm just imagining like how that team could bring Horrorland to life on the big screen with a big budget. Um, so it's just such a slap in the face that they just got rid of the idea just as fast as they announced it.
You know, when I think about it, when you think about building an elaborate set for Horrorland, or maybe going even full blown CGI with certain aspects, I can possibly see the budget getting out of hand if they wanted to do it like the best justice. So perhaps maybe the finances and the faith in putting all that money into a Horrorland movie was possibly scary as well for Sony, because they're like, well, it would cost them a lot of money most likely to do Horrorland, and that's scope. So
I don't know. I mean, I could see where they would just take shots of an existing theme park, and just even during Halloween time, because a lot of theme parks, Knott's Berry Farm, Kings Island, a bunch of others, decorate for Halloween. So just be like, hey, we want to, rent basically your park for such amount of time, take video shots, and then a lot of the stuff can just be added, in post-production as far as CG goes, to change the rides to fit Horrorland a little better. And then like the main ones, they can actually just do on a studio set, and with a green screen or something. So there's ways, I think, around it.
The Mirror Room, for example, they could film that on a set. But when it comes to like something like the Doom Slide, you can just, like you said, you can overlay something over it to make it look like, this is an actual slide they use as a template, but this is a CGI enhancement that they turned into the Doom Slide. So you don't really have to create it from scratch. So you got a point there.
Yeah, there's ways around it for sure. I honestly think the Slappy thing is probably what did it.
Yeah.
They couldn't do a Horrorland story and somehow fit in Slappy as the main guy. So they were like, oh no, we got to have Slappy. Because I understand Slappy ended up taking over the mascot spot from Curly, and man, Slappy was just everywhere and on everything, and honestly, Slappied out for quite a while. To be fair, for myself anyway, just because it was just too much Slappy, too much. But he was popular with kids. That's what was selling, so it made sense.
Yeah, the Slappy World books I think came out around that time too. So maybe they were trying to help the books out too, because they're like, hey, we got a book series around Slappy. It seems like Slappy's selling all the merch. Why not just double down on them? That's probably what it actually was, to be honest. And I think all the rumors are true in some capacity on that. They were just trying to double down on Slappy because they know it's going to sell. And I think
I can see that.
Didn't the sequel still make back its budget?
I think it did.
To my knowledge.
Let me actually look that up, because it wasn't as big a success. It wasn't as big of a success as the first one, but it was helped by the fact it did have a smaller budget, so it didn't have to make that much back. Okay, yes. So it had a budget of $35 million and made back $93.3 million.
Okay, so three times.
So it made a decent profit, but I can see why. Why they didn't continue doing any more movies after that. But
I don't. If there can be a Sharknado 50, there can be at least a Goosebumps 3. All right.
Well, not that they couldn't do one, but they're probably, firmly in the Disney Plus streaming TV show camp now.
Well, you look at it this way: if they cut back the budget as extreme, I'm assuming that the first movie was made with a considerably higher budget. Maybe it was for the best that Horrorland never got made, because if they slashed the budget to $30 million, they probably would have had to cut some corners there than some people would have been happy with. Because you still got to pay the actors, you got to pay all the, you got to pay to advertise it and all that. That's including all that stuff. So,
well, that's a very odd thing, and again, it just ties into the whole mystery of this whole thing, because the first film. So it's not clear. It says it has a budget. The first film had a budget of between $58 to $84 million. It made $158 million in the box office. So it was a considerable success. So I'm wondering why the sequel had such a considerably lower budget. Like it's such an odd choice on, the part of Sony, because you had a really successful first film and then they greenlight a sequel, but they don't want to put as much money into it. So I'm willing to bet that you're right. Like it probably was a combination of they wanted to focus on Slappy and they didn't have the money to bring Horrorland to life. So just the whole idea kind of collapsed in on itself. And then they're like, okay, we need to. Honestly, that would explain why they relied so heavily on calling back to the first film, too. Because they're just like, well, we really can't do anything else. Like, we might as well just do what we did in the first one, just on a considerably cheaper budget.
Yeah, and they recycled 3 monster animations as well to boot, and they were still like one of the 3 main monsters: Slappy, the Snowman, and the Werewolf. They were all recycled. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to cut corners to make a quick movie that they think they can make some money on. I'm assuming Sony probably had a bad stretch of years. I don't know if they were the ones responsible for the Emoji Movie, but that could have been around that time. I'm assuming. It had to be. Or maybe it was after. I can't remember, but Sony probably lost some money on some other movies, and they were like, we got to make some money back, so let's just throw a Goosebumps sequel and make some money for the studio.
Yeah.
Normally, that's why some of this stuff happens the way it does, is because they're just trying to throw something out there to make back some losses. So
It's quite a shame. And I've gone on record even saying that I do enjoy Goosebumps too. But it is a shame that, you follow up a very successful movie with a very, I don't want to say low budget, just not as well finely tuned film. I personally liked it because it reminded me of the 90s show in many aspects. But, to the general movie-going public, it probably wasn't the same. It wasn't the same thing. I know I'm probably in an unpopular camp because
I definitely agree with you. I like Goosebumps 2 more than I like the 2015 movie.
That was what I was gonna say. Is like I personally feel like Goosebumps 2 is more in tune with Goosebumps than the first film. I like the first film. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I saw a great video by Nitpicks on YouTube that just kind of went into why the second film is better. Yeah, I think it was called "Is Goosebumps for Chumps?" I think I even showed Nick and Bjorn it. I love that video, but it really was like, wow, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because he was like,
I don't see 2018 being a bad year for Sony. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You had Hotel Transylvania 3, which is a popular franchise. Equalizer, also a popular franchise. They had Venom. The first Venom movie came out that year, which did well, I'm pretty sure. Then obviously had Goosebumps 2. So, I mean, they had enough hits for sure. I mean, Sony's their, Spider-Man's their bread and butter at Sony. So
I think it's more,
especially now with Tom Holland's,
well, I think
Spider-Man being
I think it's more with
Marvel Universe. They're going to slice of that pie.
Because the previous year they did have stuff like Emoji Movie, which was
when did Emoji Movie come out?
That was 2017. It was the year before. It was the year before.
If that was Sony, then they definitely got hit with that one.
Yeah, no, Sony was completely behind the Emoji Movie. They were 100% the culprit.
Nick does have a point. Sony did have a lot of hits around that time, so it makes me question, why was the sequel movie to such a smash hit such a considerable amount cheaper? Did they not have faith in it? Maybe, you know what? This actually could be some credence here. If they couldn't secure the original cast to come back, because maybe they were only willing to do it if they got paid more money, maybe that's why they slashed the budget back, because they're like, well, we're not paying them, so we're just going to cut the budget down to reasonable prices, because Jack Black, he's working on something else. Why are we going to pay this much money for the movie if we don't have to? That's probably why he only had a cameo role to begin with, because it wasn't as much money on the table as before for him.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that's probably the case, because they're like, yeah, we don't have to pay these actors. We can get considerably cheaper actors and not have to spend so much money. And I don't know. It's
Cut
very
back on the
sad.
effects department too. Like the effects department got cut back too.
Oh God, yeah. I like that movie,
Oh, yeah.
but those effects
You
were
can tell.
very bad.
You can tell. I mean, like they literally
You can tell.
slashed the budget on the second movie for
Exponentially,
I feel like
for
they're
sure.
telling you.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
It's a shame.
2017 was not as good a year, it looks like, maybe. But I mean, they did have some good. I mean, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Baby Driver, Jumanji released that year, so they did have some hits.
Yeah.
Emoji Movie was in 2017, however, but still, you could probably have a flop, but having multiple ones, because also The Dark Tower, which was thought to be one of, probably one of the better movies at the time, ended up crashing because, it wasn't a good movie, really. So,
Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, the Emoji Movie
Yeah.
can go on the conspiracy that Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween happened because the Emoji Movie bombed.
mhm. Yeah.
we'll have to stick with that now. It's an unsolved mystery.
Unsolved mystery.
Why they unsolved mystery.
Unsolved mystery. I choose to believe that. But that one definitely seemed like it was a combination of different. I feel like that one's easier to speculate on what the reasoning could be. It feels like it was sort of like a culmination of different factors. But hopefully we can get a concrete answer at some point, and just why? Why didn't you do a Goosebumps Horrorland movie? Oh, it would have been so cool. But regardless,
There's still hope. I mean, maybe at some point we'll see Disney Plus do a Goosebumps movie. Maybe we'll get something kind of like Are You Afraid of the Dark started to do with their DVD releases. It's like anthology seasons, same thing. It's just their,
but Nick, we have the awesome Disney Plus Goosebumps show.
But I mean, that could be the third season. I mean, as much as we've talked about on here, like a camp season, or for me, as well as I would love like a full Halloween season. That'd be epic because there's a lot of really great Halloween stories that Stein's done. But I wouldn't be opposed to a true Horrorland either, because I mean, there's enough stories out there that could fill a season with Horrorland. And
Absolutely.
by default, because of the books, you could technically have a better story because they've already got it. There's a whole series.
You know how Netflix did the first 3 Fear Street movies? What I think Goosebumps should do is that, but they can pick different books and interconnect them. And that's what I feel like they should have been doing this whole time, is make like 3 movie miniseries that are connected like that. So that way you can feel like you watched a show, but you're actually watching movies as standalone things, and you can revisit them as standalone things if you want, or as a miniseries. They could pivot to that, and they can maybe experiment around with what they want to do. I think Horrorland would be fantastic to do as its own 3 movie miniseries, because you can create your own story with that, or you can even take the first book and just expand on it. Like, a lot of people are up in arms about changing the source material. At this point, I'd rather them kind of look at the book and just try to fit something grander into it. Take Lizzie and Luke and expand on it, build on their pre-journey to the park, build on their journey in the park, and more on some things that the book never got to explore.
I'm all for changing the source material as long as it adds to the story and it makes sense for the adaptation.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, for a three movie miniseries, I mean, obviously you're going to have to fluff it up.
Yeah,
you're going to have to.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But Horrorland, again, is such a vast concept for a story. It's a large location with all these different set pieces. Like, why not make, a larger, it's not something you can condense into a, what, even, I'm going to say something blasphemous here. Even if that last episode of season 1 was a full Horrorland, like going all out, there's no way I feel like it could have done a fraction of what we wanted to see, from Horrorland in that episode. I really don't think so.
You don't have so much time with the final 20 minutes to really showcase it anyway.
Exactly. So again, just
Well, that's why I like the whole rest of the first season. I felt was just a jumbled mess because I mean we've talked about that to death, so I'm not going to do it now. But that is something that they could have set up many episodes prior to, so that way that last episode could have just been fully, Horrorland. But if they decide to go this route, which I don't think they will, as much as I love the idea of how they do it with Fear Street, because it's Netflix and Disney's kind of got their own thing now. They're 2 seasons in. I don't think they'll change it up for season 3 to be like that, to be a miniseries rather than like, a 3-part miniseries rather than just, 8 episodes, which I'm not really sure why the season 2 was shorter as well. That's a whole nother topic. It was actually 2 episodes shorter than season 1, but I felt that helped a little bit in some instances, but there was just a lot of plot holes that could have been explained if we got a couple more episodes. Just saying, Disney. So that said, 10 episodes for a whole thing of Horrorland, sign me up.
Definitely. They
Just
have
saying.
the material. They have
I don't see why they won't do it, but I'm telling you, like, I think Horrorland's just cursed.
Would be.
I don't think we'll ever get it.
I think for me it would be like a fever dream if they did a 10-episode Horrorland series, but every episode was like an anthological story about a different kid just literally experiencing one of the rides there and all the horrors involved with it. I think that, in the video game they had the bumper cars with the the electric shockers.
Yeah, and the giant
you can build a whole spectacle just off that right alone.
Yeah.
I would watch that for 30-40 minutes. I mean,
Definitely.
That's fun.
Or the roller.
Well, I mean, if they did that,
and
and then you had, granted, I don't think they would have different kids every episode, but if they did, then you could wrap up that last episode by having like the kids all together and trying to get out of Horrorland because of what they've experienced.
That's the way of replicating the first 10 Horrorland books without actually taking from the books. You can make it like your own thing. Like you just put these kids into the park and they're all from their own thing, and maybe they get connected by episode 5 or 6. I think that would be fun. That'd be a different way to tell.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. I just wanted an immersive Horrorland experience. I think that's probably the best avenue they can go, is just immersing you into the park the entire time. Because there's so many places to explore there that you'd be wasting time and opportunity if you're sitting in somebody's house on a park bench talking about love and romance for 30 minutes. Nobody wants to see that.
No. No one.
Yeah. That is probably
can of worms.
One of my biggest complaints. Ugh.
Yeah.
But
you don't need love stories and Goosebumps. Come on now. Unless it's Slappy and Mary Ellen, we don't need love stories and Goosebumps.
But actually, there's one more topic I do want to get to. I know I said one more before, but I forgot. Actually,
that's what he does. He's a liar.
There's one more topic I want to discuss.
He's a liar. That's one of his better qualities.
Okay, mask mutant. No, it's the topic of ghostwriters. Funny enough, what tied into that friggin' whole
Johnny Blade
legal fallout was the prospect of ghostwriters. But there have been ghostwriters, particularly on the Give Yourself Goosebumps books, that have been discovered. 3 of which have been discovered. Carolyn Creamy, Catherine Lance, and Scott Westerfield. Is there anything on those 3 that we know of?
So I know the exact ones that have been confirmed. So there's ironically 2 Tales to Give You Goosebumps short stories that are confirmed, and 2 Give Yourself Goosebumps. So Catherine Lance, she has come out and said that she did Why I Hate Jack Frost from the 6th Tales to Give You Goosebumps book, and she did Beware the Purple Peanut Butter, which was an early Give Yourself Goosebumps book. And then Scott Westerfield did the last Give Yourself Goosebumps book, All Day Nightmare, the very last one. And I believe Carolyn Creamy did a story called Fun with Spelling, which I think was in Tales to Give You Goosebumps book 3. So those are the ones that we know have confirmed ghostwriters. Obviously, the entire Goosebumps Presents series was written by Parachute Press paid writers to adapt the screenplays. And if you look at the names of the people who wrote for Goosebumps Presents, they have connections to these confirmed ghostwriters with a certain house that I guess I can talk about shortly that has ties to K.A. Applegate, Animorphs, Beverly Cleary, and a bunch of other authors that run within this certain organization that employs ghostwriters. Even some of the writers that are in that organization you can find openly wrote Ghost of Fear Street, which was also a Parachute Press funded venture that they did. So I totally believe, without a shred of certainty or uncertainty, that Give Yourself Goosebumps, I think, was 100% ghost written. And Tales to Give You Goosebumps was probably, maybe 10% Stein, and the rest was ghostwriters.
I would not be surprised. And technically, so actually, and I took a look, many of these ghostwriters, there have been some confirmed titles, but it looks like Catherine Lance worked on 7 total Give Yourself Goosebumps. It's Beware the Purple Peanut Butter that we currently know for certain was one of them. Scott Westerfield worked on 5, and one of them was All Day Nightmare. So it's very possible that there are even more that they had their hand in, but obviously there also might be some other ghostwriters that we've yet to confirm, and that's sort of the mystery aspect of it all. But the whole controversy of the ghostwriters started because Stein wasn't allowed to have them on the main series. He was allowed to have them, if I'm not mistaken, he was allowed to have them on these side series, these spin-offs. So Give Yourself Goosebumps was free reign. But he was being accused of hiring ghostwriters for the main series. I believe as early as Why I'm Afraid of Bees, they were claiming that he was getting outside help.
And Scholastic based a lot of their lawsuit on declining book sales being attributed to R.L. Stein employing ghostwriters on the main books, which caused the sales to dip because he wasn't the one writing them. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of the controversy there. Now, there's speculation out there. There are some books, even in the original 62, people will read and be like, I don't think Stein wrote that. There are some iffy ones. I'm only going to bring up 2 here, but I think Legend of the Lost Legend and Don't Go to Sleep are 2 clear examples. You can probably read and be like, did Stein really write that? It doesn't really feel like him. But but then again, you read some of his moderns and you're like, maybe he actually did write those. But
maybe he was
but I definitely see that Give Yourself Goosebumps has majority of the evidence where ghostwriters are. And, I think the reason why it's controversial now still is because a lot of people who are fans and massive fans of Goosebumps out there, they, I guess, don't want to admit that Stein had help with the series, which, I mean, when you're a one-man band and you're, in theory, writing upwards of sometimes 3 books a month just for Goosebumps, and then you're doing 2 Fear Street, I mean, is that really realistic? Like, you think this man is producing that much content in 1995 by himself a month? That's just not believable.
There's no way.
There's no way. I mean, he had help with Fear Street. There was open ghostwriters on Fear Street. Ghost of Fear Street's entirely ghost written. Like I said, I think Give Yourself Goosebumps is entirely ghost written. It doesn't shock me, but we just don't know the exact amount of ghostwriters that went about helping. We don't know all the confirmed names. We don't know how many were employed by Parachute, because Parachute was the company financing it. But back to what I mentioned earlier about this certain company, there was a company back in the day called Daniel Weiss and Associates, and you can see them in copyrights of many series that have ghostwriter help on them. Even I think K.A. Applegate was affiliated with that brand at some point, which had her at one point, I think, working on a team with Catherine Lance. And I don't know if Catherine Lance helped write an Animorphs book at any point, but there's a lot of connections in the inner workings of these writers back in the day And it all seems to come back to little groups like Daniel Weiss and Associates and Parachute Press, because Parachute Press was obviously a ghostwriting syndicate in its own right. So we don't know what books. There probably is a master list out there on some old, Windows 95 computer from back in the day with the lists of people and the stuff that they wrote. But we just don't have the list and who wrote what. And I highly doubt any of them will ever actually come forward, because they could probably get in a lot of trouble if they do.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was, the whole issue of ghostwriters was a massive spark of controversy for Scholastic and Stein back then. So, like, I imagine if any other news came out publicly, honestly, I'm shocked that, anybody came forward and were like, oh yeah, I ghost wrote for that. Like, I feel like Stein probably wouldn't be off the hook if anybody else were to come out and be like, oh yeah, I totally ghost wrote for Goosebumps back then. They'd be like, what the
all the information I believe we know now was, I think, intended to be off the record, where these people were telling, interviewers and maybe fans, thinking that it's not going to make it out to the masses. But because we're nerds, we find out this information and we share it with the entire wiki. So now everybody knows. I don't think that if they knew that everybody would be informed, that they would have let it slip. But for example, Catherine Lance, when she let Why I Hate Jack Frost slip, when she revealed that she did Beware the Purple Peanut Butter, she didn't actually name the book. She said, oh, I did the book that involved the peanut butter. That's how she said it. She didn't say the title. She said, oh, I did the book that involved the peanut butter, thinking that was ambiguous. But, this is how they have to give us the code for us to decipher what they wrote. But, yeah, I definitely think that, like you said, Westfield did about 5, Lance did about 7. I want to be shocked if there was maybe 6 or 7 other writers that did that amount as well and made up the entire Give Yourself Goosebumps series. And I would love to, learn the truth about that, because these are the people that should be credited for writing these books. If Stein didn't write them, why is he being credited for it? That just seems wrong to me. That's just one thing about this whole situation that I've never been able to sit right with, is that Stein's taking credit for it and nobody's getting the right acknowledgement that they deserve. Now, granted, they got paid their money and they were told, to hush up about it. So they knew what they were getting into. But other book series that use ghostwriters, they get credited at least on the copyright page. Mm-hmm. So why aren't they being credited here? Maybe it was because Scholastic might have known about it and they were in fear that maybe it would damage book sales if people saw the copyright and be like, hey, wait, Stein didn't write this.
Yeah.
It probably would have been, because if you think about it at the time, Stein wasn't just writing, he was also doing commercials for Goosebumps stuff. He was the face too. I mean, for a lot of the stuff. The intros to VHSs, special episodes, whatever, and then whatever else he did, and like they had the cruise that you could be on Stein with, or write a story with Stein. Everything was Stein. So imagine back then if this was leaked and like you found out he only wrote 70% of the books or something, all encompassing. That would be damaging to probably not only his reputation, to Scholastic's reputation, because it was just, he wasn't just an author at that point. So I could see where that would be damaging for sure. Not to say that they shouldn't get their credit now, because we're so far beyond that. And some of these have leaked, which if you tell it's like telling a wrestling fan wrestling's fake. You better be careful when you say that stuff out there about Stein, he didn't have ghostwriters, you shut up. They might get on you, but fact is he had to have had ghostwriters. I mean, to be fair, let's be real. I mean, like you said, this is,
you look at his busiest year,
common sense.
You look at his busiest year of 96 and 97, and you look at the sheer amount of books associated with his name, there's no way he did not have help. I mean, there's no way you could produce that much content unless you're an AI bot. I mean, there's no way. You would have to be writing how many, maybe like 200 pages a day on 3 different projects. That's insane. There's no way.
Yeah. especially again with his schedule at the time. He wasn't just writing books.
Yeah.
He was traveling. He was doing a lot of stuff. Yeah. So don't see it happening. But again, another unsolved mystery.
Well, and hopefully, we can find more of these, lost ghostwriters and see if we can give them their credit. Hopefully without damaging any of the goodwill between, Stein and Scholastic right now. But
well, that NDA might still be in effect, so we probably will never. Like, I don't know, like if there's a, expiration on some of these NDAs, like. But I'm just thinking if nobody's come out now about it officially, there's probably something in place long term where they're never allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, it's not closure agreements, man. They're a doozy. They probably signed them as they finished their book. You sign an NDA, you get paid. That's how you get paid, and then you write your next one if they want you to write one. That's pretty much how ghostwriting worked in those circuits. And I know some information about it because some of the ghostwriters for Animorphs, if you don't know this about Animorphs, after book, I think 24, the rest of the series was ghostwritten until like the final 2 books where K.A. Applegate came back. But she let the series go to ghostwriters, and Scholastic allowed it there. But how she got around it for giving credit to them was she would put the names of the ghostwriter in the thank you. So the author was allowed to say, this book is for blah, blah, blah. She would write it, this book is for the ghostwriter's name. That's how she got around it. So.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that she did that because she wanted the writers to get the credit. She didn't want to just take the credit because she didn't do it. She might have helped the outlining, like Stein might have done with his ghostwriters, but she didn't sit down and put in the legwork that they put through. So,
well, just another.
Or maybe if it's true that like there was a ghostwriter for Legend of the Lost Legend, I don't know if I'd want credit for that either. So maybe there's not an NDA. They just don't want to fucking talk about it.
I'm not going to ever spill that.
I don't want my name on that. Please, I don't want my name on that.
They don't want to damage their own reputations anymore. So let that fall to Stein. He's got enough under his belt. It's fine. He can take a loss here and there. Me, on the other hand, I'm not taking that loss. I ain't taking credit for that. Hell no.
Oh, man. Well, I guess it's just another mystery that is currently to be left unsolved. But, for every mystery, there is someone out there who knows the truth. Maybe somebody who's watching right now. Perhaps you?
Perhaps
you. Robert Stack impersonation. Right
I was hoping someone was going to get that. And that is going to do it for tonight's episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. Austin, thank you so much for joining us and talking this awesome topic of Goosebumps with us.
Absolutely. I love talking with you guys and being part of the Goosebumps crew whenever you have me on. And
100%. We love having you on always to talk some Goosebumps. And, by all means, we're always happy to have you on. And for those of you at home, if you want to see us talk more about topics like this, sort of just like the unknown aspects of the Goosebumps franchise, let us know in the comments below. There are other things that we could talk about in terms of like lesser known Goosebumps things, and if you want to see us maybe dive deeper into some of these topics we've touched on today, let us know, because I feel like we could probably even do a full episode on any of these. So let us know in the comments below if you want to see more from this. But for now, these are mysteries that are left unsolved, and we'll solve them.
Unsolved mysteries.
I will, of course, leave links to some of the sources that we used today, links for Goosebumps Live on Stage. We'll have some of the links for some of the other topics we've covered for you guys to check out. And, of course, I'll leave a link for Austin's channel, Goosebumps Completionist, as well as his podcast, Goose Junkies. You can go check out. All those links are going to be down in the description below. And, of course, make sure you follow Bjorn and Nick at Goosebumps, Saucy Fan, and Sean, respectively. If you liked today's episode, make sure you have a like and comment. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on our audio platforms and social medias. All those links are in the description below, so check them out. We'll have another episode for you next week, but until then, this has been the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. And from all of us here, we want to wish you all, as always, to take care, stay safe, and have a very scary day.